How does that strike you as like a good insight to like this idea of like a lot of how we parent is how we relate to ourselves?
You just got to hang on for the ride, buckle up, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a ride.
Tired of ADHD overwhelm? Let's make life so much better with ADHD. I'm Nachi Felt.
And I'm Dovid Becker. We get it. We've been there, and we love to talk about it. We're on fire, and this is ADHD on Fire.
I especially like that we could make this episode about parenting and then use it to talk about marriage.
So it's like a scam. We're going to talk about marriage, but under the guise of parenting. That way, thousands of people interested in parenting will join and discover that they have to fix their marriage.
Yeah. Egad. Oh no. This is harder than we thought.
I don't
I
mind.
thought I just need to know exactly what to say to my kid and then he'll magically behave. Turns out I actually have to have a healthy vibe in my home where I give off happiness and confidence and security and safety. Oh, how am I going to do that?
So welcome to episode 10, our great
Yeah.
milestone. How you doing? Okay, so go ahead. Like, start us off. Marriage.
It's funny, when I was newly married, I joined a parenting class by the late Rabbi Dr. Abba Andrew Goldman. He was actually just had a feature on him in Mishpacha magazine called Cognitive Shift. He was the youngest student accepted to Harvard, or the first one accepted for their like pre-high school. He was in 11th grade, I think, like not even 12th grade. He was their first one. They've done that too. His father turned down the Nobel Prize for award-winning scientific insights in blood and how to prevent blood disease. Like a genius of a dude, and like really, really accomplished, who then became religious later on. Like I think while in college, then started designing his psych courses around philosophy and his newly discovered faith. And he had this very highly coveted parenting class. And there was only, I think, like 12 people in it for 12 weeks. And I finally got in. I think it was like a 1 or 2 years after I got married, because I only found out about it after I got married. And then I was put on the waiting list and blah, blah, blah. Fine. You know, they like being prestigious, these Harvard guys. The point is that he starts off the class saying, all right, so good, effective parenting comes from an effective marriage. And we're like, what? And then he spent 10 out of 12 sessions speaking about marriage, how to develop a close, healthy relationship with your spouse. And then the last two, as like a matter of a fact, like, okay, and then you have to realize that children are little people and that your job is to help develop their understanding and help them learn how to navigate this world, like the emotional world, which is really the basis for one of my lines, which is kids just need us to help navigate their world. Everything else they can learn on, well, now ChatGPT.
Got it. Well, what about single parents?
That one's even tougher because there you have a marriage with yourself. And that's also hard because then how we relate to ourselves. I think we spoke about this in the past, right? The idea of having a relationship with yourself. The relationship we have with ourselves, honestly, it's the same important for if you're married or if you're single. So I think this is a great place to start, actually, which is as a single parent. And again, everything that we're going to say about a single parent is going to apply to single parents who are in a married relationship also, meaning even when you're married, you're still an individual. So this is just for individuals. I know that for me, I still remember, right, that like the most important part of being a good parent is being a good person. And most of us are. Like, we're all right. Most of us are good enough people. I mean, let's just prove it from the fact that you got someone else to love you enough that they were willing to commit to making a child with you means you did all right. You're doing all right. Unless it was obviously some freak situation. But in the general, like most cases, that means you're doing okay. someone likes you enough that they trusted you with their own heart, right, and with their like their entire self with you. So that means
Yeah.
you're a good enough person. So that's a really great place to start, which is to recognize, hey, I'm a good person. And then the rest of the issues all come from how we relate to this good person that we often doubt is really good enough. I I know that the way that we relate to ourselves will directly contribute to how we relate to our children. When I had my first child, who just gave me a Happy Father's Day card this morning, um, and I thanked her for making me a father. She used to have this cry, which probably was very innocent, but I would always get so mad whenever she cried. And I didn't know why. It was the weirdest thing. I'd be downstairs, I hear the cry from upstairs, and I'd all of a sudden instantly get angry. And it bothered me. And so I was like constantly like I would wonder about it. Like, what is going on? And then it hit me. What was happening was that I felt that her cry was like almost like a complaint, an allegation. I don't know how to better translate the word taina. It was like a
Like it meant that you weren't doing your job as a parent.
exactly, and I felt inadequate that I wasn't able to take care of her. Now, obviously, I don't have the equipment she was looking for most of the time, to nurse her or provide her with whatever it is that she really needed. But like, and that helped solidify the clarity that like this is a me problem, not a baby problem. It was the way I related to myself that I felt inadequate and I felt like I wasn't good enough, which makes sense. If I was a first time parent, I had no idea what I was doing. And I think I
Right.
accurately felt like I have no idea what I'm doing. And I found that very interesting and insightful that as I got older and more experienced and 4 kids later, I now actually am totally fine during crying. I'm calm. I get it. I'm almost like, in a weird way, I might even whisper this healthy. That I see it's not an attack on me. It's not an attack
Healthy.
on me.
Are you whispering that to the kid or to yourself?
I don't know because I'm afraid to admit to
You're
myself that
like
I
flexing.
don't know if I really am.
Healthy.
I know. Also, then I
Yeah.
lose all the
Cry
victim
more.
benefits of saying that. Oh well, I have problems. So,
Yeah.
but I wonder if that's
Very
insightful.
healthy.
How does that strike you as like a good insight to like this idea of like a lot of how we parent is how we relate to ourselves?
Yeah. And I would just add to it. No, that makes sense. Of course. Like it's our internal working model and triggers that are basically driving our reactions to our kids more than like our theoretical parenting knowledge. And I would add to that that when a child is ADHD, so that amplifies this issue by a gazillion.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a clinical number. Yeah, it's a gazillion
Yeah,
amount,
no,
gazillion
I'm
X.
telling the research
Yeah,
shows it's a
research
gazillion.
yeah indicates that it's
Yeah, the
a
research
gazillion
indicates
times harder.
a review of a meta analyses, which is like you have studies, and then you have studies that review all the studies, and then you have reviews of the studies that review all the studies. A gazillion is a real number. So a gazillion times is parenting ADHD child because goodness gracious, they're impossible and amazing but impossible. And if you're an ADHD parent, right now you've compounded this gazillion problem to by another gazillion because what the ADHD child needs the most is a consistent parenting style, and what you're most likely to provide is an inconsistent parenting style. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
100%, a
I
thousand
mean,
percent.
maybe we should just end it here on like on a very sad note. Like it's over, done.
Like it's been real, folks. Good luck out
Yeah,
there.
yeah. But the truth is that I always say this. If you my good friend Nachi Felt taught me something. It's called zoom out to zoom in, which I found myself embarrassingly in one of my sessions this past week, just like constantly reiterating. Okay, let's zoom out to zoom in, and
Yeah,
everyone
why is
looked at
that
me like
embarrassing?
because nobody has any idea what I'm talking about. And then I forgot. So I'm like, wait, no. I said, just listen to the podcast. You'll understand. But if we zoom out, then we'll see that that's what I always think about kind of things with ADHD. It's a wild ride and an incredibly challenging journey. But At the other side of the journey is lots of fun in the next stage of life. Like, because you're just going to have an alive, fun, exciting family eventually, right? Like when you get out of when you help your kids past childhood and past teenage years, then you end up with like some really fun adults. So like your anniversary parties and your holiday parties are going to be awesome because they'll be fun, creative, and not boring like the people down the block. The people down the block, okay, this is very, very important. I believe that God put families on your block that are really just there to make you feel intimidated because they have like all these perfect, well behaved kids. Their house is always neat, right? No one's bouncing off the walls when they have like Suda's family meals. Like everyone's just calmly sitting around the table, having beautiful family time, talking about their day, sharing emotionally and whatnot. And like, yeah, when the mother, they're always on time to the bus stop. They're always dressed. They're not charging out the door with their, shirts untucked, briefcase spilling behind them, coffee splashing all over them, right? Totally not. But they're just there to make you feel intimidated. And it's okay. Like they're boring families. There's no growth there. There's just like boring and boredom. And you know what their parties are going to look like later in life? Everyone sitting around the table mumbling morosely to each other. While ours are going to be awesome and fun and exciting and off the wall and whatnot. So like I think you just gotta hang on for the ride, buckle up, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be a ride.
It's funny because I don't know, like you have the advantage of being on the other side in a way that you've kind of made it through the crucible. Um,
Not yet.
I'm
No, no, no,
still
no, no,
in
no, 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 no.
it.
Not yet. I have a 6-year-old.
So I my oldest is 9. So like for me, I
Right.
have a lot who are still very young, and I'm really enjoying the process. And I think that there's a lot of hope for the process itself for it to be fun, but more than fun, it's also deeply rewarding and meaningful in a way. The boring life, right, comes from a certain ease and convenience of being able to navigate it. When you don't know how to navigate life, that's when the challenges happen. That's where things start getting a little bit off
That's
the
where growth
rail.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly where the growth is. And so what I found is that even with my kids who are relatively young, because for them the way that they have to interact through the world is a little bit more, shall we say, unique. Then what ends up happening is that we actually connect more. I'm like I'm much more involved with their lives. It's so much more of a guidance in a weird way. I feel like the more challenges our kids have, the more opportunity we have for connection. And then it's a closer unit. And I'm enjoying that process. I forget what happens at the end, right? Let's say at the end, I don't know, let's say they grow out of their ADHD. Like I'm okay. I'm enjoying the here and
I'm only smiling because I felt this way also at this stage. But then there's this whole thing called teenagers. So let's talk again in a few years.
now. Yeah, that's true. But again, if we just zoom out, like you said, right, to zoom back in, I think that if we look at it from the perspective of like our own relationship with ourselves, what I find is something very interesting. My parenting, like coaching, the parenting coaching I do, often revolves around us as parents and how we could co-regulate each other so that we could then co-regulate our children. So what is often going on is that parents will come to me and be like, "All right, so how do I fix my kid?" And there's like a certain like confusion. Wait, this is all you want us to fill out forms about us? Wait, but when are we going to talk about? You're asking me questions about me. When are we going to talk about my kid? Never, actually. I don't really need to hear about your kid because I may have a PhD in psychology, but you have a PhD in your kid. So that means that you know this kid better than I ever will. No matter how many weeks he comes to my office fetching about you, right? You're still going to know this kid way better than me. And so what I could teach you, right, is how to regulate yourself, how to look at this through the lens of an ADHD friendly vibe that you could create in your home. And then you kind of do all the magic because you already know the kid, you know your home, you know your values and what you really want to happen here. What you really need to also be able to do is to exercise those values, to make them alive, to make them a part of your home without our feelings getting in the way. And it's a struggle. It's a life struggle. It's something I'm still working on. It's something we're probably going to work on. You're for sure probably still working on this. And we're all going to be working on this. By the time we're really, really old, we're still going to be going, wait, where was that thing I forgot? Like, I can't believe it. Why do I always lose my meds? And it's just like, that kind of thing is always going to be happening. So it's how we develop the relationship with ourselves, really, that sets the tone for how we guide our children to set up their relationship with themselves.
That's a key point. I agree. And I think also, again, going back to gazillion, that this is true of all parenting, right? There's nothing new here, but ADHD parenting is infinitely more complex. It is. It
Yes.
just is. Like,
I love your point before that one of the reasons why it's infinitely more complex is because ADHD needs consistency and emotional regulation. And most of the times, right, it's inheritable, right? 60% inheritable. So that means that I think this was your line or ours line, that ADHD apple doesn't fall far from the ADHD tree.
Ari,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
such a great truism. And unfortunately, that means that you're going to have an apple tree like surrounded by splattered apples, like all over
An
the
ADHD
place.
tree has branches like going all over the place,
Right? They don't
like
even know where
tilted
their
and
apples are.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I really like that point, is that it's so hard to do that, which is why, again, when you go zoom back in to the relationship with ourself, you realize that if we could maintain a consistent relationship with ourself, that consistency can be the healer and, like, at its core, the direction that we're able to set our children in, that even when they're older, they'll be able to continue on that way.
So this is episode 10. Really, episode 1 through 9 was about how to start to maintain and achieve that consistency. And we're actually modeling that by being consistent, and we're up to episode 10. That's pretty consistent.
Yeah, which reminds me of my model that I use for education. So I just finished like an extra there's like a faculty enrichment at Columbia for faculty to help us kind of enhance our learning, to always be up to date with most like modern scientific approaches to teaching. So what I found really cool was that they were talking about that the way we learn things is by reflecting on it and making it meaningful to ourselves. Meaning, it's not about memorizing information. It's not about how much you study. It's about how much you connect to the data. So I find really cool is that when you go back, sorry, zoom out again, but when you zoom out to like just the laws of learning, there are three essential laws of learning, and this is how every human has ever learned anything ever, which is modeling. Someone had to show Thag how to start a fire. Oh, burn thing, right? Then Thag has to actually make the fire himself, right? And then you have someone who teaches Thag, right? Well, where he went wrong and why, if you don't have enough of that, like the tiny little wood stuff to have right next to where your spark is, the
No
fire is
wood,
not going to
no
go
fire.
anywhere. Who, Thag? I made that
I
up.
don't
That's a
know.
Neanderthal
Yeah.
name.
Oh, I thought it was like some reference that I just don't know
No,
about.
no, no. I was just making it
Some
up that from the
Disney
beginning of
kids
time
thing.
that we've all been going through these three stages: modeling,
Tag.
experience, and feedback. And you have that with ABCs. Someone had to teach you ABC. Then you have to learn it yourself, ABC, and then you do it apple, boy, cat, right? And then feedback, which is no, the C could be like sometimes it's C like with an S, and sometimes it's C with a K, and just like what? The English just makes no
Ridiculous.
sense. Yeah, that's true.
Ridiculous.
And let's just breathe it out. That's just English, right? So the idea of having modeling, experience, and feedback becomes so much more important in that parent, like the family, like unit, where everything is inherently more meaningful and personal, and has a connection there, because we have this deep connection to our parents. We've been hardwired this way, right? Almost, if you want, you could say it's an evolutionary safe survival mechanism, that we feel connected to our parents and we want to cleave to them. So whatever they're modeling for us is something that we not only connect to, right, and really relate to, but it allows us, when we experience it, it enhances and deepens that connection to them. And then when they provide us with the feedback to do that third, right, to close the learning loop, right? That enhances this connection. So in a way, you have these two very powerful motors here, which is learning and at the same and connection, human connection. We know that all humans are always trying to grow and learn, right? And this is something that is deeply embedded into our psyche, is that we're always growing, we're always becoming better, whether we like it or not, right? We just are, right? So sometimes it's becoming better at things we prefer not to be doing, right? Like getting better at sleeping in or like that kind of stuff, right? You'll notice that
Much
people,
better.
right? I've been there where I used to sleep in and then I just get better and better at sleeping in. I could sleep in later and later. And I think I've done the full day sleep in, with pride. The idea is that when we mix the two, the family like dynamic is something so super cool because it's now connection and learning. And really like that is the secret ingredient for us to learn how to live.
So what comes out, like it's interesting because I feel like so much, like you're saying, so much of the work of ADHD parenting is really doesn't need the child. And I think if you look at the research, this is real research, actually, not the one that I made up
Not
before.
the gazillions and gazillions.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll confess I kind of sketched that, but well, you guessed it. But but the research shows that therapy doesn't really work for kids with ADHD. At least I'm talking about a grade school, elementary school, because it's generally not that they don't know what to do; it's that they don't do what they know. So, so why do kids in elementary school go to therapy?
Honest reason, because the parents and teachers are like, oh my God, I don't even know how to deal with them. You fix it.
Right. So it's how we pull the parents in, but it's interesting. Like I've told that to parents. I'm like in like a stage whisper, like really, I can help your son better if I just work with you than working with him, because we can teach your son lots of skills, and guess what? He ain't gonna use them.
Ever. Right.
Right. Well, once by accident. It's like the oppositional defiant kids. Like they do the opposite of what you want them to do, right? So some, wise parents are like, okay, I'll do reverse psychology. I'll ask them not to do it, and then they'll do it. But then they double reverse. Like they're way
Yeah, it's like the
smarter.
double
Like
reverse card in Uno. They totally own you.
right,
And then they throw in the wild card, then a plus pick four, and then you end up going like, wait, what just happened here?
precisely right, precisely right. So, and I just want to say something else that I noticed about ADHD parenting, because I think this is foundational. Foundational is that very often parents of children with ADHD end up on very different pages, and that's because
What do you mean by
uh,
different pages? What does that mean? Can you
different
just clarify?
pages in how to parent this child, right?
Oh
Because
yeah, yeah,
now
yeah.
I'm just sharing theory here. I'll give you my theory, and tell me
It happens to
tell
be
me
I've seen this in the research that there's often like there's the soft parent and then the tough parent.
right.
Yeah,
So
keep
this
going.
is where I'm going. Tell me if this makes sense. This is what I noticed. Like I've noticed this over the years. Happens is like this. We know statistically that ADHD spouse tends to marry the opposite profile, right? Not intentionally. You're not like, okay, let me look for the opposite profile in my dating. No, it's just that the ADHD spouse. Let's just for to make it simple. Let's say the husband has ADHD, right? Like, not for any reason. I'm not like trashing husbands, but let's say, So what happens is he's going to marry someone with very, very strong executive function,
Yeah,
not
the
even
way I like to
realizing.
say it is the executive functioning deficit often marries an executive functioning overcompensator.
Okay, good. Executive function overcompensator. That's exactly right. Why is that? So it goes both ways. It's because he's attracted to someone who is more consistent, stable, has it figured out, able to manage life. Right? That's cool. Like he's living in overwhelm, and like here's this person of the opposite gender who's like got it all figured out. Wow, there's something so attractive about that. And let's say she is is attracted to someone who's not boring, who's not just like organizing and whatever, who has that spontaneous spark and fun and creative, which is all amazing
And a
if
drop
you're dating.
deeper, David. I would add a drop deeper. They're attracted to the perceived comfort and chill of this person, which we both know if you pull the curtains aside is because we have no working memory. So we're never anchored in the past or grounded by the future. We're just floating somewhere in the present. And in a way, again, without knowing what's really happening, the anxious or over executive functioning person is kind of attracted to, wait, that person just looks like they have it so chilled. Wow,
Yeah,
life is so chilled
yeah,
with this person.
and
But if
fun
not,
and fun and exciting
yeah.
and different,
And they're like, I
right?
could finally
Oh,
relax with this person until you get married and spend the rest of your
right.
life
So that's
telling
what I
them to
want
get
to
your
say,
socks off the
right?
floor.
I think this is a dream. Really, it's a dream for dating. Like as long as you don't marry each other, it's awesome. And now we'll take it a step further. Even if you marry each other, it's awesome at first. And the reason why it's awesome at first is because of the Lost Princess effect, right? Did I ever tell you the Lost Princess
No,
effect?
but this is
That
fun.
means
Tell us.
that when someone with ADHD meets someone who they're taken by, they're attracted to, they're infatuated with, so then that person, the spouse or the fiance turned spouse, becomes an object of intense hyperfocus. Now, when they're the recipient of intense hyperfocus, that's really amazing. Like they're going to get the coolest gifts and letters and trips and dates and like everything's going to be amazing. Like and then what happens is they get married. So now, let's take a step further. The initial phase of marriage is still exciting. And you're still the source of hyperfocus because this is a cool new thing, marriage. And it usually lasts a little bit and then responsibility and real life kicks in. So if you enter into this beautiful dynamic equation, a child, or maybe two, or maybe three, or maybe four, or maybe five, or whatnot, right? Now we go from this awesome source of hyperfocus into mom and laundry doer and house cleaner and shared responsibility. And next thing you know, we have a lost princess because your hyper focus has shifted elsewhere. Your need for stimulation is no longer fulfilled as easily by this spouse thing. And next thing you know, like you're looking elsewhere for stimulation. But I want to accelerate this into parenting. Now, what happens with parenting? We take these two amazing people for dating, and they get into parenting. And now the ADHD parent is probably going to be the inconsistent parent who's just going to want his kids to be happy and give them, all the good things in life and not really do the hard part of parenting. And the non-ADHD spouse is going to feel that responsibility on their shoulders and be stuck being the hard part of parenting, which is the dynamic you mentioned earlier. It's like the good cop, bad cop. ADHD guy is the good cop. Non-ADHD spouse is the bad cop, which creates a lot of frustration and resentment. Now I want to take it a step further, and then I'll be quiet. It goes like this. They start here, right? Like they're in the beginning of the parenting dynamic. They're 6 inches apart, right? He's the good guy, good cop, warm, loving, caring, right? And she's the get things done, hold the line, discipline person, right? But then they start to worry because he feels like, oh no, my kids aren't getting enough of the good stuff, the warmth, the love. And the non-ADHD spouse feels like, oh no, the ADHD spouse is too permissive. So they each start to overcompensate for each other. And then the gap in parenting widens. So then everyone lands in an extreme place, which is very detrimental for the kids. So that's the bad news. The good news is there's 2 parts of good news. Number one is that they don't have to move so far. It's okay. Like they just have to move a little to be on the same page, right? And then we have to work together to figure out what that looks like, number one. And number 2 is going back to the marriage piece. When they can work together and figure out how to live together, then you have a beautiful marriage, an amazing marriage, a warm, loving, caring marriage, but it's work. And going back to the research of the review of the meta-analyses, we talked about parenting with ADHD. Now, marriage with ADHD is a gazillion times harder by research than marriage without ADHD. So that means a lot more work has to be done than on average, right? So I want to put that right up front and center, and also that there's a beautiful possibility in a marriage like that, because when it works, it's awesome.
Yeah, well, yeah, what works about it and what makes it so awesome is that you then have this beautiful blend of structure with like love, warmth, and creativity that's so beautifully contained within that structure. But I find, and again, this is an Ari Tuckman line, is that there's like this little dance where there has to be a step up, step down, right? So that means the person with ADHD has to learn to step up and start actually leaning into the discomfort of being a little bit more executive functioning,
Yep.
consistent, and the
Yep.
person with executive like too much executive functioning is to start stepping back and lean into their own discomfort of kind of letting go a little bit and letting things kind of just be. To quote the Beatles song, just let it be. Sometimes you really just got to let it be. And like that blend, though, of two people who are overcoming their own nature, leaning into the discomfort of growth to become the best, that is the single greatest modeling experience and feedback we can ever give little tiny human beings.
Yes. Yes. And just to wrap this all up in a pretty bow, so what comes out from this entire discussion is that there's two entry points. You can enter through the marriage lens, or you can enter through the parenting lens, but either way, you're going to land in the same exact place, right? So you can go to, you can look at it as marriage therapy or parenting, and the work is going to look pretty much the same. And that's how your children will benefit, which is, I think, your central point that you started off with. So we wrap it all up in a pretty bow. But I just want to say, like, if you look back at this discussion, thank you, learned a lot. There's where did we come to? We got to like scratch the surface of the overview of the hardships, right? Like, that so much of parenting, parenting the ADHD child or an ADHD family is going to be inordinately harder, but at the same time, extremely rewarding. And at the same time, will make you and your kids very, very close when you get it right. And that you can have a beautiful family that will be long term fun and exciting and great and close. And that it's going to be a wild ride. And that it's all about the relationship of the parents and their marriage. And when it comes to a single parent, also, like, that will make things more challenging, but at the same time, um all of the good stuff could happen too.
Because the core is the relationship with ourself, right? And that's going to be
Yes.
consistent throughout being a single parent, a married parent, a divorced parent, co-parenting, not parenting, semi out of it parent, right? It's really who we are as people that our kids are striving for, seeking to know, because that then becomes their model for how they could be throughout this world. And it's a huge responsibility, but in a way, it's also such like, again, I'm a little biased here, but I feel like it's also the proudest responsibility to carry. It's like this noble undertaking, which has it's one of the most difficult things in the planet, right? Working on ourselves and learning to heal our own hurt and to accept ourselves for who we are. But again, if we could utilize those cycles, right, of acceptance for ourselves, being able to then create clarity, right, the acuity of zooming out to zoom in, of like, hey, let's just look at the big picture. ADHD is hard, and parenting's hard, and like all of that, to then give ourselves the agency of, but hey, if I could work through my own stuff, if I could get myself to kind of figure myself out good enough, so then I can move myself towards action where I could actually be there for my kiddos, right, and help guide not only myself but to lead my family and lead them to this greatest gift of accepting their own self, so that they could create their own clarity and do that cycle for themselves.
Excellent. Well said. So if I was listening to this whole discussion, I'd be like, okay, got it, amazing, awesome, cool, but like how? So
Great. We could
if,
follow
if
that
we
in
if
episode 11, but I just want to end off with recommending
yeah,
a song by Sanctus Real called Lead Me, which I recommend to clients all the time. It's something that I find inspiration for myself. The story behind it is that he used to be on tour on the band with them, and he would sing this song called Lead Me, which is about being a father and leading his family. And halfway through, I think he was in the middle of a concert, and he's just like, what am I saying? I'm saying lead me. And meanwhile, I'm like 3,000 miles away from my family. He quit the band and went back home, and now gives like little like talks on like parenting, on how to be there, how to be present. There's so much out there for all of us to kind of pick up the mantle of responsibility and really, kind of lean in to being our best self for others and for ourselves.
Awesome times. Thank you, Nachi.
Yep. Hopefully we'll get a little deeper with this and help people get a little more practical advice.